Okay, I am back with another Workday video. My Workday actually, right now, is not about drawing. Um, Currently, I'm working on editing the audio for the second part of my book. Um, Not quite halfway through. But what I've found is it's very difficult for me to edit the audio and talk at the same time. My brain is not strong enough. So, although I've been the picture of inconsistency with doing this, I decided it's time to get back into it, get back to work on it. So, I am drawing today, um, still using artificial intelligence artwork output as my reference, doing what people would call an AI paint over. That's the technique that I'm sticking with. Right now, I've taken a break from working on the Dillock artwork. Let's see if I can open that up real quick. Taking a break from working on the Dillock artwork that I have, and real happy with where this is, particularly with the wrinkles that I freehanded in his right hand sleeve. Still need to do the left, got a lot of shading that needs to be done. I feel like part of the shading is maybe a little too deep here. Um, I'll have to see what can be done about that. But this is not done. Taking a break from this, working on Tales, who is a actually not a card from the second set, but a card from the third set. Um, the artwork that I originally used to represent this character was this. I think this is a very good representation of Tellus as she's presented in the book. However, I don't know who made this artwork, um, and I most certainly don't have the finances to pay them for their very very fine work. Um, so I set myself to the task of trying to create some kind of artwork that evoked the same character aspects. Let's see, Talas is kind of um, in the story. I think she embodies some of the more negative traits you might associate with a young lady or a young woman. She's a bit manipulative. Um, she's not very honest. She's all about using what she's got. I think though that kind of, I don't know, maybe flippant interaction with other people that I wrote into her character is some of what made me like this picture. I don't know if this is meant to be a more serious character or what, but what I took away from it, she's got her dress riding up in a gust of air, kind of Marilyn Monroe, low cut shirt, using some kind of magic. Um, I just kind of took it as somebody who is using their, whatever you want to say, their feminine wiles in addition to their skills. Um, I guess my preference for making the cards would be to, what I want to aim at is I would enjoy making cards that have beautiful female protagonists, but I personally would rather avoid doing a lot of TNA in the artwork. So this is maybe a bit more modest version of the character, um, which I kind of like that better. I know that there are a lot of opinions about that, but that's where I am with it. Um, let's see here. second. Okay, well, whatever. So, I just bumped my desk. Sorry about that. Let's see. Here's the reference art um, that I generated. And the first thing, so this is kind of a very painterly piece of artwork. The first thing I like to do, um, oops, when so I took this. I like this quite a lot. So the first thing I like to do when working with something like this is this is supposedly done like in the style of Monet. Um, what I would like to do is give this some hard lines and some hard shadows. So that's kind of my first step. I don't need to. I don't want this artwork to kind of overwhelm me. So I take the opacity way down when I start working with it. And again, uh, I would I would myself classify this as a kind of tracing. Um, I am making no claim to being an artist. Uh, this is the technique that I can use to make the card art that I want to make. So this is sort of more of a functional exercise for me. Um, I've made a card game, and in making the card game, where I started was essentially plagiarizing other people's art. I think this is the easiest way of putting it. Um, Most straightforward, most honest. And I guess I don't. So in plagiarizing other people's art, I had no intention of making a profit. I had no intention of profiting off of other people's work. Um, the plagiarism was in the service of getting an idea out there. And I don't think that there's anything bad or wrong about doing that. I think a lot of people do that, and I think for good reason. I think sharing ideas with each other is a good way to help develop new ideas and new expressions. So, in that first step, that's what I did. I went online, downloaded a bunch of different pieces of art, pondered them, picked the ones that I thought described the character the best. So now I'm moving on from that to where I've really firmly established who these characters are, and now I need to have artwork that I can use, artwork that I can say is mine. Um, and I can't do that with somebody else's work that I found online. Obviously, that is not right. I think ideally, if I had a bunch of money to sling around, I think I would find the artists who made the images that I initially associated with my characters. I would find them and I would work out some kind of deal to get them paid and say, hey, look, I feel like this art is really good for my character. Is it possible I could use it that way? Would you give me permission? What would be the money that was needed? That would really be an ideal. But I don't have money. I'm not earning money off of this. I don't have any money to throw at people. I have trouble putting food on the table for my family. I'm currently unemployed, blah, 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 all of those things. So my alternative was to take the concepts that I had, go to an AI image generator. I'm using a version of Stable Diffusion. I had it output the AI art, and then as is the experience, I think, with a lot of artists, whether you accept them as artists or not, let's just set that aside for a moment. I'm going to call them artists. My apologies if that offends anybody. Um, but the generation part for any artist who has a vision in their head is generally a pretty time-consuming piece of the process, because you end up having to generate a lot of images, because most of what you generate, you're not looking at it in terms of whether or not it's anatomically correct or all the details are there. You're looking at it in terms of the vision that you have in your head and how well it aligns with that. Um, Personally, I think that's a real process, that's a real thing. It's very similar to me to the process that I went through where I was browsing images online looking for the initial representations of my character as I was developing the concept. So, did a lot of rendering. That took several months to work through. Um, did a lot of different images for each character until I came across the ones that I eventually settled on. And even those can sometimes shift in the end. And this is the image that I came across for this character. And so now my next part is to sort of fix the problems with it, and turn it into my own artwork. Now I know for a fact that there are a lot of people who would say that's not true. You can never turn this into your own artwork because you used a computer to generate the image. Therefore, nothing about it is yours. You're just tracing a computer's thing, which the computer is just plagiarizing other people's artwork. It's just a legal gray area that people are skating by in right now, so on and so forth. And I think there's a lot of really good points within that. However, in terms of simply plagiarizing other people's artwork, um, I think it's been demonstrated. I mean, this is my take on it. I may be factually incorrect on some points here, but my take on AI art is that it has been demonstrated, to my knowledge, that AI art does not replicate the artwork of the actual real life people that its model is built off. It doesn't replicate it. It takes the style, as a large language model is capable of understanding the conglomeration of variables, and it uses that as a guideline to create an output. The way we look at it is it learns the style of the people that it plagiarized, I guess, is how a lot of people would like to put it. And then it creates a piece of art that is not something any of those real people had created. It creates something new, but using their style. Now, I don't find this as disgusting as some people find it, because I think that every artist, and I'm talking about artists here, let's say AI didn't exist. I think that all artists in all of history have done this. They have looked at other people's artwork, they've tried to understand their style, and they've tried to replicate it, or they've tried to understand how to replicate it in the service of developing their own style. Now, this isn't a philosophical argument because, taken to its conclusion, you would say, well, what am I doing? Am I trying to develop my style? Because how can I develop my style when I've taken my style out of the equation entirely by using AI art? And that's a very good argument against AI art, but that's not what I'm doing right now. I'm not developing my style in creating this image. I've set up some parameters. I just talked about them. I like to have hard lines. I like to have hard shadows. Those are my parameters. That's how I want to interpret this art to create a consistent output. But what I'm after is not developing my style, as sad as that might be to anyone who wants to encourage and support the development of artists. That's not what I'm doing. Maybe an ancillary benefit might be that that gets accomplished, but it's not what I'm after. What I'm after is I'm after creating a product. So an image that looks good, I hope, that I can put on my cards in my game, so that in some theoretical future where my game is able to be packaged and sold, which is kind of what I'm angling at, the artwork piece is taken care of, and it's taken care of with artwork that I made. Whether you consider me an artist or not, it's artwork that I made, and yes, with the help of AI. So again, I'm going to acknowledge right off the bat that for a lot of people, with the assistance of AI immediately means I didn't make it. And, there's no middle ground on that for a lot of people. That's just a hard line stance that they take. So I'm going to acknowledge that. But I think, at least legally speaking, um, it's safe to use the artwork that I'm generating this way. So that's what I'm doing right now. Yes, indeed, it is a form of tracing. I agree. I have expressed many times, and I will continue. This looks blue. Let's take that out. I don't want blue. I will continue to express that an artist, yeah, it's a dark blue. An artist who can sit down, put pen to paper, and create these kinds of images, straight out of their head onto paper. Now, that is a person of exceptional skill, who I would not want to take anything away from that person. What they are capable of doing is so much more impressive than what I am capable of doing. 100%. And I think for a lot of people, that needs to be then extrapolated into, you should hate what I'm doing. And, obviously, of course, you have every right to feel whatever way you want to feel. So if you hate what I'm doing, ouch. But of course, you have every right to feel that way. All I could do is be honest about what I'm doing. Um, I would love to think of myself as developing my ability to create art, and I think in the end that is more or less my underlying thought about this whole process. But I absolutely respect that other people may feel, and feel strongly, that this is, somehow bad, wrong, does not benefit the art community, and really doesn't benefit my personal development in any real way. Of course, I disagree, but I understand the perspective. Um, and I think that there is some validity to elements of the perspective. I engaged in a thought exercise regarding this, because the thing that I am passionate about being able to do is writing. And so I think a real easy thought exercise, as you're considering AI art, would be to put it in terms of AI writing. How do I feel about artificial intelligence writing novels? Um, so I came up with a lot of thoughts on it. Um, my first reaction was a bit of scoffing, like, okay, well, I guess AI can do it, but what are you really going to get from AI writing novels? It's not going to be anything impressive. Um, but then I put some more thought into it, and I thought, well, I think that's probably pretty, in a general sense, that's pretty much how people felt about AI art, right? Like, AI art started out being pretty laughable. Um, it didn't look that great, Like, it was kind of easy to spot. Uh, And, it definitely looked like a problem on the horizon because everybody, I think, pretty much knew it was going to get better over time, but it definitely started out pretty laughable. And so then you have to consider the idea that, like, well, so AI writing, um, it's going to start pretty bad because, again, artificial intelligence is not intelligence at all. It is it's a mimicry of the output of intelligence, which makes it appear to be intelligent, but it really doesn't have that capacity. So the mimicry of the output is going to become more sophisticated. It's going to become better over time. So when AI is able to replicate things like making a good turn of phrase or developing a good plot line, um, how's that going to feel? What's that going to be all about? And um, I think at the end of the day, really what we're looking at here is that people in the modern day have become accustomed to and comfortable with, and maybe even prefer, uh, sort of vapid, soulless writing. Like we, as people, have been doing it for a while. There are entire websites that exist just to be filled with um, nothing, right? Like they're just filled with text because text is needed to get people to view the website. The text itself doesn't matter. Nobody's putting any thought or effort into it. It just needs to be created. And some of it, I think we've all encountered, some of it really didn't have any thought whatsoever put into it. But it's a collection of disjumbled sentences and buzzwords, and like you give yourself a headache trying to read it because it doesn't mean anything and it's not saying anything. But as a culture, we've grown to accept this, right? Like if it's somehow getting us the kind of information that we're looking for, or somehow entertaining us, or as far as the person who is creating this kind of website, if it's somehow driving enough views to get them the profit that they want, then you know it that it's great. It's serving its purpose. So nobody has a problem with it. And so we, as humanity, have kind of grown accustomed to this type of thing. Like we're okay with it, is what I mean. We expect it to an extent. And so that, I think, in large part, opens the door to AI writing, the mimicry of writing without actually writing, which puts it very much, I think, in the same territory as AI art. Like when an artist sits down to create an image, they have a vision, like they have an impulse driving their effort. They're not just making, well, generally speaking, they're not just making effort for no reason. They're trying to accomplish something. I think that looks weird. I'm going to be honest. So it's kind of this. She's bending her elbow back, so this is going to kind of puff out a little bit, and it does accomplish that. There is a bit of, um, it looks convex. Um, it also looks strange. I'm not sure I like it. I took some softer colors and made them strictly into blacks, and I'm not sure that I like that. What that does in the end. I'll have to think about it. And again, Like, even now, when I'm doing this, is of course, you can see me struggling with creating this. And the struggle comes from the fact that I don't know what I'm doing. And I haven't taken the time to learn what I'm doing. And there's a lot of people who would say, hey, you should take the time, learn what you're doing, learn how to do it better. And then, you'll be able to fix these things yourself more easily and more quickly than what you're doing now, which is trying to copy something that a computer spat out and then, you know, wrestling with it, trying to make it look good to yourself. Like, there's a better way, right? That would be the plea, and I think that's true. Um, I don't disagree with that criticism. I only disagree with it in the context of this project, right? Like, I'm making a limited set of images. I'm trying to make 36 different images to use as card art. So I struggle in the breakdown of that as to whether taking all the time to try to learn a traditional skill set for being an artist would be the better or more efficient, maybe, use of time, or whether just pushing forward with this kind of haphazard methodology that so many people hate is gonna pay off better in the end. And again, really, like, I did make a conscious decision somewhere along this process to say, look, I don't want to get bogged down in, trying to prove myself to be an artist. I gave up on that a long, long time ago when I was a teenager. That's many, many years ago. Um, Many, many years ago, I took what limited feedback I had access to, mostly negative, and I decided, you know what? I don't want to be an artist. I agree. I suck. I'm no good. I can't do it. I cannot grow. I cannot develop. I cannot get better. And what I create is laughably bad. And, for me, that has in my life often translated into I have, other pursuits. So I will focus my attention there instead. And same with this. Like, going to the trouble of learning how to do this correctly and learning the underlying concepts of creating shadows and folds and clothing. um, I would have to put some of myself into that and open myself up again to the critique of, wow, what you made really sucks. It's no good. It's laughable how poor your understanding of folds and shadows truly is. And conversely, by doing the AI paint over, somebody could come along and say, hey, your shadows on the sleeve here, they look real stupid. The folds doesn't make any sense. The fabric, like, the artwork is bad. You've done a bad job. You're clearly bad at this. And I can, in that instance, I can just say, yeah, you know what, you're right. I am bad at this. I used an AI generated image and I did my best, and it's not very good. You're right. 100%. A real artist would have done this so much better. Um, yeah. So that's, kind of what I'm looking at in that mindset. Um, and I know that for a lot of people, there's like this, sort of idealistic vision of the world where, if you just make an honest effort and try to get better, um, people are going to get behind that and they're going to like you. But people usually only hit you with that argument when they don't like what you're doing. Like, for instance, if they don't like that I'm using AI art, that's what they're going to say. Oh, well, you should really invest more time and effort into learning to do this without AI, because people will appreciate, the honesty of your effort more. Well, I'm going to challenge that, and this is how I'm going to challenge it. I'm doing this with AI art, and I'm being honest about it, and I'm showing the effort. Whoops, I hit my desk again. And I'm showing the effort that I'm putting in to make it happen. So if you appreciate the honesty of my effort, um, then appreciate it. Otherwise, yeah, absolutely. Laugh at how terrible I am, and, say that what I've done is not worth your attention, of course. Um, I'm used to that reaction. I've experienced it quite a bit. So why, of course, I'll leave the door open to that being the reaction, right? All right, I got a little off topic there. So let's talk about AI writing, because that's absolutely, it's not even coming, is the thing. It's not coming down the pike. It's not something that's on the horizon. Like, it's here. Um, I have. There are people who are earning money, and good money, um, off of AI writing, and they've even been caught. Here's the really interesting part. They've even been caught. They're ooh, I lost the plot here. These lines got away from me a little bit. Okay, so this is, you know, this is this, right? Let's get rid of this little tail here. This is all dark here. This is all shadow in my head. So that's shadow, and we can just do like a real simple connect there, and all of this below here can be shadow. So now I just need to make sure that the lines are solid, and I should just do a fill on this, would probably be the easiest and best way of doing this. Anyway, AI writing is not coming, it's here. And very interestingly, quote unquote authors. So here I'm gonna bandwagon with the people who say you're not an artist if you use AI, because I'm gonna imply you're not an author if you use AI. You're not a writer if you use AI. Um, but anyway, the authors doing it, have even been caught. Like, I want to say, they're so comically lazy, um, that they've included the AI prompts, um, in the text of their writing. And then people who have been reading, ostensibly reading the book, have come across the AI prompts and said, wait a minute, a human being didn't write this. What? Um, so I have a couple reactions to that, though. Like, if you're reading a book and you honestly couldn't tell that this was not written by a human being, I'm very curious. Like, were you actually reading, or were you just skimming? Like, was it actually that good that you couldn't tell? And obviously you can't ask people this question, because they're going to get defensive, and they're going to be like, yeah, I was reading. I'm a smart person. Um, it was indistinguishable, of course. Couldn't tell the difference between that and anybody else's writing. And maybe that's true, and maybe it's not true. But you would never get an honest answer about that. Because if somebody said, yeah, I was reading and I couldn't tell the difference because, like I'm a bad reader, I have trouble stringing concepts together myself, and my vocabulary is very limited. Um, and so reading has just never been a strong suit. But I got this book, about this awesome thing, and this guy was talking about this awesome thing, and I was enjoying it. Um, because I'm an idiot, and as an idiot, I would never be able to tell the difference between AI writing and quote unquote real writing. Like that's kind of what my ego wants to say is going on. But that's not necessarily what's going on, right? Like maybe the AI writing is just really good and much, much quicker than me. So, how does that change things for me then? Well, it has changed. Well, first of all, yeah, I want to acknowledge it has changed things for me 100%. Like a decade ago, when I first tried to release my book, things were much different, right? I wouldn't have been competing with AI books back then. Uh, Now I am. So, how has it changed things for me? Well, I am trying to share my book with people in a market saturated with people who are not trying to share their book as much as they're trying to make money. Now, don't get me wrong, I want to make money. I absolutely want to make money. I have 5 kids to feed, I have a house to take care of, I have a wife fighting cancer who is also working a full time job. It's important to me to make money. Um, and part of that process, of course, is that I'm looking for a job. So I'm actively looking to turn this into a part time hobby. Not because I want to, I don't. I don't want to turn this into a part time hobby. I want to spend all of my time working on writing, creating the books that are in my head. And I have a passion for creating the books that are in my head. A passion that has driven me for over 30 years with this particular storyline. Um, and there's, of course, there's a whole nother discussion to be had in that regard. Because, wow, over 30 years you've had the storyline and you still haven't, like, written more than a couple books? What? I mean, that's a legitimate question. It's a question I ask myself, and it's true. For over 30 years, I've been wrestling with wanting to share this story in my head, and I've written 2 books in all of that time. Two books. Now, to me, I'm ashamed of that. First of all, because I'm not particularly impressed with the first book. I want to rewrite it. I don't think it's very good. And secondly, because with the second book, like I've written it several times, and I'm rewriting it now, and I'm very proud of it actually. But 30 years on, and a decade after I finished it the first time, the landscape of sharing my work has completely changed. And is there even an opportunity for me to make money off of this? Probably not. I mean, realistically, that probably passed me by. Um, and really, currently I'm operating with a sense of desperation, right? Like, uh, I actually was comfortable with not writing full time. I worked as a data analyst. I was comfortable with the job, comfortable enough that I wasn't actively looking for like a better job, even though I was paid relatively poorly for the work that I was doing. To put some context on that, I guess, um, I don't want to spend a ton of time putting context on it, but I software, wrote and developed software, which has, as of the time that they laid me off, which had saved the company that I worked for over $10 million. And that was proven by time studies. So saved in that it created a situation where they didn't need to hire extra employees. So saved the company over $10 million dollars. And in the 13 years that I worked for them, I promise I was not paid $10 million dollars. In the 13 years that I worked for them, and maybe I'm spending too much time on this concept, but give me one moment. So we're going to go. We spent about 6 years being paid that. And then maybe 2 years. Okay, 7, 8, 9. And so maybe 4 years being paid that. Okay, so I saved the company that I worked for over $10 million, proven by a time study with the software that I wrote for them. They felt they couldn't afford to continue to employ me after 13 years, and the total amount of money that I earned working at the company for 13 years was $275,000. So 13 years of work netted $275,000 total for me. So my point simply being, I was fine with that. I accepted all of that. I was okay with it. I was okay with staying at the company. I was okay with being comfortable in the job that I had. I was okay with not being a full-time writer. I was fine with all of that. And they decided to lay me off. And I don't have any proof of anything, but I firmly believe to this day that I was chosen out of the entire department of people for two reasons. Number one being because I had been there for a long time, I was earning a bit more than the other people there. Now that could be false because they were hiring people in at a pretty high rate of pay, so I could be wrong about that, but that's one of my presumptions. And the other one being that writing the software that I talked about, which saved the company $10 million, I was told, kind of through a few layers of management, I was told by the director of that side of the company not to write that software, that it was unnecessary. And so my response to that was that I really didn't like doing the job the way that we were doing it. It was kind of making me want to claw my eyeballs out. But as the director had told me not to write the software, that she did not want me spending my time doing that, I kind of was in this corner in my mind of like, I can see how this job would be so much more enjoyable with software. But if I don't do what my director says, then, like I'm directly disobeying an order, right? That puts me in a risky situation. So what I did instead was I wrote the software on my own time at home without using any company time. So what this accomplished was, when I implemented the software, of course, the director immediately tried to have me fired at that moment, which was, I think, 2 years into my employment. But she was not able to have me fired because I was able to show definitively that I did not use company time to create the software, and that all I was doing was I was bringing in software that I had created and asking my supervisor if I could use it, and my supervisor agreed that I could use it because it was demonstrably better than what we were doing. Like, it was saving the company time, and it was saving the company money, and it was improving the product that we were offering to our client. So my supervisor was also justified in saying, yes, we should use this software. So at that point, the director was like, I'm sure they still could have just fired me that day. But they decided not to, I think because it would have looked pretty bad. But unfortunately, in doing this, I made the director look pretty bad. Some egg on her face, I think. And she held a grudge about that. And so I don't know who will ever see this, but important lesson to know is that if you make somebody who is your superior at a company look bad, um, there's a strong possibility they're going to come for you at a later date. Um, and so, what how it all played out was, I was smart enough to realize, okay, I need to get out of here because she doesn't like me and that's not a good future for me. So I moved into, a completely different area of the company with even more focus on data analytics, which I enjoyed. But then what ended up happening long term was the team that I was on, when the company restructured, got shuffled back under that same director. And at that point, I kind of knew the writing was on the wall. So at the very first moment, when and you got to remember, some of this fell under COVID, and so in order to save face, our company was very anti letting people go. So we were carrying the weight of like a lot of really useless people who didn't do anything, but they would not fire people because they didn't want it to look like they were firing people in the midst of a global pandemic, or that they were heartless or anything. Like, they were very sensitive to the implications. So once all of those implications went away, the very first time there was any call for a reduction in workforce, like they lost a major client, so they lost, a certain percentage of their annual profit, and so that then generated this, well, then we have to reduce the workforce by an equal percentage. As soon as that happened, I was the first on the list for the director to let go. So that's kind of how I see it. This is a bit of a tangent. All I was trying to say was I was happy with the job, and I was happy with that identity. I was happy with doing that. I generated enough income to provide for my family, which ultimately was my higher priority. So as you're, watching me do this, I would just beg the understanding of the fact that my high priority is, I want to provide for my family. So yes, of course, in doing this, I would like to earn some money, because I want to be able to provide for my family. That's my ultimate goal. I want to be doing useful work to be able to provide for my family. And this is the useful work that I have in front of me right now. That's not always going to be the case, I'm sure. Things may shift and change. And so, I want to be aware of that happening as well. Um, so, yes, I want to earn money, but also, like, I've always wanted to tell these stories, and that's not been a thing that's ever gone away, and I don't anticipate it as being a thing that will ever go away. So, the good news in that is, I think one way or another, this book was always going to be available. So for anybody who ever reads the book or listens to the book who enjoys it, this was always going to happen. Um, and sadly, it took me 30 years to make it happen. Um, and that's something I think that AI writing doesn't have, right? Like, the things that people write with AI writing, uh, they don't have this impetus of, I have a story I want to tell. I think some of it comes across as soulless because I think some of it, or maybe a lot of it, is motivated by, I think I have a way to make a lot of money. So you look at the authors, again, quotation marks come from my ego. You look at the authors who are using AI to write novels, and you can quickly realize that um, they're doing it for profit. Like, look at their output. They're writing what, like 100 books a year or something like that. Like, I struggle to write a book in 2 years. Um, so they're far more efficient at writing. Like, they take a concept, a basic concept, they feed it into the AI, and the AI spits out a story, and then they sell it to the world. Um, and similar to my take on art, I do think, the world of writing is not necessarily better off for this, but at the same time, it kind of it is what it is. It is what it is. Like when Charles Dickens was writing, to my understanding, and I might need to be corrected on this, but when Charles Dickens wrote his books, there wasn't a huge number of authors in existence. Um, there wasn't a giant bustling market of people with manuscripts for him to contend with. I would say for Mark Twain, same story. Like there were some, but there wasn't millions, there wasn't hundreds of thousands of people and millions of books. Um, that was not the reality that they lived in, and so the very thoughtful, very well written work that they created, it had a chance to exist. Um, just because of the nature of the world. Now, am I saying my very thoughtful, well written book, because of course, is not being given a chance? Well, I mean, yeah, kind of, I guess I am saying that. But it is what it is. Sad as it might be, um, that's just reality. It's just how it is right now. And it is, if I were to dwell on that, I would say that is a hard thing. It's a hard thing to face. It's a hard thing to deal with. Um, but I don't think we can roll the clock back on it. Now, similar to the artists out there whose response to AI art has been, well, I'm just not going to engage with it. Like I am an artist. I have a vision. I want to create artwork. I don't feel any particular need to engage with AI art beyond the fact that the market that I exist in, the money concern, the market that I exist in is saturated now with all kinds of art, which was generated quickly and cheaply and easily using AI. So that puts some kind of pressure on me where I feel like the amount of time that I invest in creating artwork, um, it's too much. Like I can't keep up with the market. But I'm going to make the conscious decision to say no. I'm going to stick with my process. I love my process. I love what I'm doing. I'm comfortable with it. I'm going to do it. So for that person, that's kind of the similar position that I take, except with writing, where it's like, okay, well, I'm going to be heavily disadvantaged. Um, the people in the market who are looking to get a book, read a book, experience a new story, um, they're going to end up with some, AI slop instead of something that I create. Like they're not even going to be aware of me because I can't even compete for existence in this new market. I am going to be drowned out by all the noise of the AI. And, in that context, I understand, I completely understand the reaction of saying, well, I just decry all AI. In fact, I'm going to demonize it. I'm going to vilify it. I'm going to say AI is bad 100% always. Uh, any taste of AI in any project taints the whole thing, makes it terrible. If you're an author and you hire somebody to create a book cover for you, and they use AI to do it, then it's going to taint your whole project to the extent that I'm now going to say, well, the book that you wrote, you must not have written it. You must have used AI. It must be an AI generated book. So I can ignore everything about you because AI. All right, I'm looking at this and I don't like it, right? Because it should just come straight over, but I've got my line dipping down for some reason. So I feel like that should change. Like it should be up here more. Now, I don't know if this line dipping down is a bad thing or not, but I'm just going to get rid of it for now because I don't know what to do with it. I just don't want it there. I think that's a more reasonable um, looking collar. And then, yeah, like I think down here would be in shadow. I don't think that would be, I could be wrong, but I don't think that would be lit up. I think that'd be in shadow. So I do like that. I think that ultimately looks better overall. Of course, I just put the shadow on the wrong layer. So I want to walk that back a bit. Okay, there I finished my eraser. So now I'm going to go back to the correct layer, and I'm just going to kind of follow this curve. I think that's the way to do it. I think that looks better. Not really, because it's curving up, and I don't think it would. I think it would go like, the light would get in there. Maybe. Again, I don't know what I'm doing. I haven't studied this. I don't know what I need to know. Legit criticism. So, my feelings on AI art, would they be changed if I spent consideration on AI writing? If I applied the same standard that I've already stated, but said, hey, AI writing. Well, no, not really. I don't think. I don't think I really would, and I don't think I really have in everything that I've said so far, um, because I think AI writing is here. It does exist, and it has deeply impacted the market for writers, um, and it has created a sense that as a writer, if you're not taking your concept, your writing concept, and you know throwing it into an AI generator to create something to spit out and give to your audience, you can't keep up. The audience that would have been interested in your book is already going to have purchased an AI book and either be happy with it or sad about it and be out of the market before I even put something out there. That's how it is. And has that fundamentally moved the needle on my feelings about AI art? Yes and no. Like, I think no to the conclusions that I've already expressed. I think it hasn't really changed any of that. Um, it's made me sad, but I don't think it's changed my conclusions. Um, but I think in coming to those conclusions, these considerations are absolutely, yes, important considerations that have affected my mindset. Um, the fallout from AI content existing in the world has had many negative consequences. It has. And it will continue to have. And many negative consequences, some of which are going to negatively affect me now and later. Like it is, and it will continue to affect me in a negative way. But again, AI art is here, and I think, and AI writing is here, and I think ultimately, um, the actual what people would agree on right now as real artwork, um, I don't think that that's going to fundamentally be changed by AI. People who have a burning passion to put art out into the world still will. They still will, and they will still do it. They'll still need to do it, and they'll still do it. Do I want to keep that little corner? Like, what is this little giblet here? Because obviously I want this to come up. This is the collar. So what is this little bit here? I think this is a computer's dream. That's what that is. So what do I want to do with it? Well, I think maybe what I want to do is I want to scoop this to here because I like that a little better as a line. And I want to get rid of this part of the sketch, I think, because I think that's just confusing. I don't think that needs to be there. It is here. It is affecting people. And it's affecting people negatively. And I think it's bad to be heartless, to have a heartless reaction to that. To just tell people, well, tough luck. You're screwed. Oh, well, tough luck. That's heartless, and it's not ideal. That's not the way you want to be. And I think, fundamentally, artists who have a passion for putting something out there, they're going to keep doing it because they have to. And real art and quality art, real writing and quality writing, they're going to continue to exist. They're not going to be profitable. People are going to struggle more to do it. It's going to come at a higher cost. Not to the consumer. And it might, the higher cost to the consumer is going to be, it may be more difficult to identify the higher quality things that you're looking for. But the higher cost to the consumer is not going to be monetary. Like I put my book out there, I earn, I think, 20 cents per book. I wanted to price my book at $1, because I figured anybody could afford that. But in order for Amazon to earn money, and in order for me to get any money at all, I had to put it at $3.99, and then the print version at $6.99. That was the cheapest I could do it. Actually, I don't want to get called out for being a liar. I think I could have done it a little cheaper, but that was the cheapest I felt like I could do it. And I think $6.99 is a little harder of a proposition than $1. I would have rather put it out for $1. I figured $1, Amazon could have 50 cents, I could have the other 50. Or $1, Amazon could have 75 cents, I could have 25 cents. That's fine. But, $6.99, I get 20 cents. So that's just the reality of how it is now. Is everybody going to flock to buy a book for $6.99? Probably not. That's kind of expensive. What are you going to do? You just do the best you can, right? So let's keep doing that.